One of the biggest criticisms that I see against retro gaming is that us retro gamers are blinded by nostalgia, or, wearing nostalgia goggles, if you will. The concern here is that we only like these games because of those warm, fuzzy, nostalgic feelings we had playing those games as a kid, despite them actually being bad games in reality. Now, I might be a little bit biased, but I think that us retro gamers are actually pretty fair when it comes to this kind of thing, being more than willing to say that certain games didn't age well. And on the flip side, we are willing to praise the games that did age well and have very good reasons to back this up. For example, one of the most common arguments for why 2D visuals do look good is because they're just more visually pleasing than some of those early 3D graphics, which a lot of retro gamers will be the first to tell you have not aged well, as well as some of the game mechanics of some of those early 3D games where they were still figuring out stuff like camera issues and controls and analog joysticks, or, working around just having the single joystick back then, things like that. Now, of course, nostalgia can play a role in getting us to want to play some older games in the first place, but then once we actually play those games, I feel we do a pretty good job of being fair in evaluating how they hold up. And of course, it's only reasonable that if something was fun for us at one point in our lives, even if it was our childhood, that it could be fun again now as adults. And of course, the pushback to this is that, just your childhood was a less stressful time, so anything that reminds you of that, you're going to enjoy now. And my argument to that would be, we're only nostalgic for things that were good. You never hear anybody go, man, you know what I miss? I miss the days of homework. That was great. Or, like some of the nasty lunches you would have in school as a kid. Like, you ever get... This happened to me, and I know this happened to lots of other kids, where you get your lunch packed and you have like a sandwich or something in there, but there's also like a banana or who knows what. And so it's sitting in your lunchbox all day until lunchtime. And then you're left with this sweaty, gross sandwich that's been sitting in your lunchbox, and it's all humid. Your ice pack's totally melted by then, and it kind of tastes like banana because everything just sort of gets fused together. It's kind of got like a plasticky taste to it from the lunchbox itself. No one's nostalgic for stuff like that. And sure, even I'll be the first to admit that nostalgia does have an added effect of making something extra enjoyable for us, but my point is just that there's gotta be some redeemable qualities to whatever it is. The other point that I'd like to make is that once someone does go down the retro gaming rabbit hole, and believe me, it is a rabbit hole, you start looking at all sorts of different systems you never had, and different games you never had, and stuff you'd never even heard of, all kinds of stuff. And we find a way to enjoy this stuff, and that's because there's objective reasons for why a lot of these retro games are good. Now, modern video games are great. I play quite a bit of them myself, but I gotta admit, there's a lot of bullshit that we have to deal with in order to play them. Monetization has taken the forefront big time, and sometimes people just want to go back to the good old days when, sure, companies were still trying to make money back then, but it just felt like it was more about the artistry. There was less of these predatory monetization strategies going on back then, like DLC that's on the disc day one that you have to pay for, and microtransactions and loot boxes and all this crap. Not to mention the games themselves just have a very different feel. Now, sometimes we want to play a game with more of a story, or a game that takes a while to figure out how to play, that, something with a long tutorial or whatever. But sometimes you just want to play a game that's very minimal on the story. You can just pick up the controller and you're off to the races, jumping over Goombas and growing into a giant Mario, running through mushrooms, whatever. You just want to have that quick, immediate type of experience, and you don't want to deal with these long, drawn-out intros that games have, or lots of dialogue and whatever. That can be good, it has its own place, but not everybody likes that. And, you know, at the very least, not everybody likes that all the time. And if there's one thing that is very validating to the retro gaming cause, it's that indie games are predominantly, you know, inspired and modeled after a lot of these retro games. And of course, a lot of older gamers are the ones gravitating towards these retro-inspired indie games, but there's also tons of gamers from these newer generations playing these games too. It's just become an accepted style of game. These really awesome 2D based, very easy to pick up and play type of games. And it just makes video gaming as a whole a lot more diverse, I would argue, that we have so many different styles and types of games. And here's another thing, if there's something good from the past that we don't remember and hold on to, it'll get forgotten about, because these newer generations of gamers would not care about these games if it wasn't for us older farts screaming our heads off about how good they are. I mean, they see all the positive attention that these older games get, and it makes them curious, like, hey, maybe they're good, I don't know. And then they try them. And of course, you know, a lot of this is parents teaching their kids that these older games are awesome. And, you know, then these younger generations actually play the games, they have the games in their hand, and they live on that way. And then at that point, it's not a nostalgic thing. It's just, here's something that's new to me, even though it's older, and I think it's awesome. Okay, so now that I've established that older video games are a valid thing, I'd like to address this idea that nostalgia is inherently some sort of negative thing. I don't think it is at all. I think it's a very positive thing. I mean, it's a good feeling for starters, and if it's bringing light to some of these great things from the past, then everybody stands to benefit from it. Just imagine if all of us older retro gamers had this mindset of anything that's older is crap, it's garbage. Well, then guess what all these younger gamers would be stuck with? Yeah, you're stuck with Minecraft, kiddo, and you don't get anything else. And sure, for some kids, Minecraft is all they need, but my point is, what a depressing world to live in where just to know that every game has an expiration date on it. My hope would be that even some of the modern games we're playing now will be something that people care about in the future. I don't like playing a game thinking, yeah, this is something nobody will give a crap about in 5 years, so I'm gonna play it and have fun right now. No, that sucks. That totally kills some of the momentum of it for me. Personally, I like playing a game thinking that it will always be good forever and that people will be playing it for years and years down the road. So I say to embrace your inner nostalgia and allow these games to have a legacy that carries on down the road for years and years to come. Teach your kids to love the games they're currently playing right now so that when they're older, they have nostalgic feelings for them and are able to carry on the legacy of video games. Alright, so those are my thoughts, but of course I want to hear what your thoughts are. Specifically, just how do you justify the whole having nostalgia thing? Why you think it's a good thing, what it means to you personally. I'd love to hear all that kind of stuff from you. Okay, so leave those comments down below, and I will see ya in the next video.